Okay, welcome to Tame the Beast. And this is where we start moving from that reactive state to the regulated state, starting to gain control over those emotions, calm down that nervous system. And I really truly believe if we can master our emotions, we can master our lives because stress, anxiety, like overwhelm, that pressure we feel, those are all just emotions. So if we can control our emotions, we can literally control stress and anxiety. So yeah, I'm very excited. I love this work. I think it's great. So I want you guys to just take a moment and really just reflect. Where are you right now? So really think for everyone out there, who gets the worst version of me? And I say that because for most of us, we go to work, we try and keep it calm, cool, collected. We give our best at work because that's how we make the money, which is how we support our family, etc. But then we give everything at work, and then by the time we get home, we're so exhausted. Usually our family gets the worst version of us because we're just so maxed out and we really have nothing left. We have no patience, our energy's depleted, like they tend to get the worst of us. So this is just kind of bringing light to where am I at and where do I want to be, right? Then when I'm irritated, what do I do? This kind of falls into, I could talk about this a lot, so I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. How you react under pressure. There's many types of this sort of reaction, the avoider, where you disattach and maybe you leave, maybe you just completely shut down. The controller, where you start getting micromanagey and you start really trying to control everything around you, like obsessively and more than usual. There's the anger one. We all know how that goes, right? So there's all these different types. So when you're irritated, what do you normally do? How does that reaction come out? Are you kind of able to process it, or does it tend to bubble up? Maybe you push it down and then it really bubbles up later. What's your normal? And then who is affected by that most? Is this something like you lash out at employees or other coworkers, or do you save it all for when you get home? How does this look, right? And then how long does it linger? What's our recovery from that reaction? Back in the old days, I call them, when I was really high stress, high anxiety, I would linger I'd give my boyfriend the silent treatment. I'd be super irritable, controlling. It's kind of like I had all of the reactions and it would last days. I want to say the longest time I gave my boyfriend the silent treatment, I think it was like 4 or 5 days. It was a long time. By the time near the end of it, I had actually forgotten why I was so upset, but I knew I was justified in my anger. Couldn't remember why. That's how long I was mad and punishing him for. I literally forgot why I was mad. Like it's terrible. So whatever it is, this isn't about judgment, guilt, shame. It's not about attaching anything to it. We are just digging into pure facts because if you've seen any of my stuff, you'll hear me say it 1,000 times. Awareness is the first step. We cannot change what we don't know we're doing. So this is just bringing to that surface, like looking back, okay, last time I got irritated, how was my yesterday? Did I lose my shit in the car and get road rage on the way home? How long was I angry for after that? We're just becoming aware of our patterns, aware of our behaviors. That's it. And once we're aware of them, then we can work on changing them, right? So keep it facts, keep the emotions at the door. This is not saying anything about anything. We're just gathering information, right? And then this is one, again, not to shame or put judgment, but how proud of am I of how I show up under pressure? And this is double-edged here. So part of it is like when I think back, and I've done it even more recently in the past. I've been pretty good for the past like 6 months, but in the past year, I snapped on the dogs a little bit. I did regret that. I had that little bit of guilt. And I am not proud of when I have those negative emotional responses. So really you look at it and you're like, oh, yeah, I didn't like that. I don't want to be that person. That person does not make me proud. It does not fit the version of me I want to be. So we look at that. When's the last time we did that? How many times do we do that? Is that the majority of our life? Or is it when I think of like normally my normal now, and this is why I do this, guys, because my normal now is I don't snap. I have that control for the most part. Like I'm pretty good at keeping it all together, right? So I am proud of how I show up under pressure because I do my what I call I do my power pause. I take it in, switch into problem solving mode, and I start working out what has to be done because I know feeling the stress, the anxiety, the pressure, the overwhelm, getting all frazzled, freaking out, having these emotions in control of me does not solve any problems. It does not help anything. It literally makes everything worse. I know that. And so now I am proud of how I show up. Every once in a while, there's a few, you know, we're all human after all, as they say. But for the most part, I am pretty proud. And if you're not, for the majority of your reactions, that's okay too, because awareness is the first step. So then, okay, I know where I'd like to make the changes. And then we're just take it from there, right? So, talking about capacity, the amount of life stuff that we can handle without losing our crap. And just basically how big our plate is, how big our buckets are, however you want to put it, right? And when that capacity is low, when our plates are really full, that's where you get the snapping, the controlling, the withdrawing, the over explaining, the overthinking, etc. All of those negative behaviors where we're having that, we're losing the control of our emotions, right? So just kind of think again, like, where am I at a regular everyday? Like, okay, do I snap every day? Is that a normal thing for me? Do I do the silent treatment a lot? Do I just kind of like avoid and like leave and completely shut down? The blank stare at the wall where you just zone out because you're like, I just can't. I just can't. How many times a day do you say, I just can't? And if you don't, if this isn't a daily occurrence for you, that is amazing. That is fantastic. But if it is, that's okay too. We're just, again, gathering information. Where are we on the scale? And where do we need to go from here? That's it. That's as simple as that is. And then, of course, how big our plate is, our buckets, our capacity, that determines literally how much we can handle, right? This is the difference between when you see people that have one problem thrown at them and all of a sudden they're frazzled and they're just like, oh my God, and they're losing it. And you're like, dude, calm down. It's okay. We can handle this. That person has a very low capacity. They really can't handle a lot of stuff, right? They get frazzled easily. And then you see that other person, and I'll just say female, for example, and you're like, my God, she does the PTA, she works full time, she volunteers, she's got 3 kids, she yada, da, da, da. Like, how does she handle? And she's always in a good mood. How does she do it? Those sort of people, because they have really big plates, they have big capacities, they are able to handle more stuff without breaking, without losing it, without having that emotional reaction, right? Those negative things. So that's, we just want to really gain that perspective. Because I really believe, like, yes, we want to get rid of stress and anxiety, but again, those are just emotions, right? So if we can learn to control our emotions, then we control the stress and anxiety. And then in having it all, not having to give up our success for a better home life, we just need bigger capacities. We need to expand our plates. And that's what I do working with people, right? So again, thinking back, that stress, for me personally, I was the go-to was the anger and the controlling. I would lash out. It would be like giant adult tantrums. Like I said, I stayed mad at my boyfriend for almost a whole week one time. Like, that is an adult tantrum. Shutting down, walking away, giving him the silent treatment, that is an adult tantrum. Like, obviously, I'm not in control of my emotions. I've shut down communication. That's toddler behavior. Stomping around. I'm not talking to you. Right? And these are obviously, I mean, who wants to walk around acting like a giant toddler? Hopefully nobody. But when we don't have that emotional control, the emotions control us like little kids, right? That's why they throw tantrums. That's why they cry when they don't get what they want. That's why they hit and they get angry, because they don't have emotional control. And for a lot of us, especially if you're my generation, born in the 80s, the 90s, we did not learn that growing up. It was, the walk it off, like, I'll give you something to cry about. Like, we did not learn to process emotions. I think I barely learned what emotions were. It was kind of that, crying is for babies, and we don't air the dirty laundry. We don't have emotions in public. It was right. Like, we really bottled everything up. It's so toxic. It's so negative. And this is how it comes out. We end up being literal adult children running around, letting our emotions take control of us. So this also comes out when we throw the blame. Okay, well, I'm really sorry, but you blah, blah, blah. You made me, you this, you that. Like, literally refusing to take responsibility for any of your actions. Again, that's very childlike behavior. If you can't take responsibility, you're being a victim. And that's letting the emotions really kind of be there. And I used to do this. I used to be my boyfriend says I'm still defensive, but I used to throw the blame around. I used to come up with 1,000 excuses, huge victim mode. And this just creates our own problems, right? When we get to that state, it's like the self-fulfilling prophecy. We actually create things to be upset about. We find things to be upset about to stay in that state. Like, it really is a self-feeding loop. It's really toxic. It's really horrible. And even I kind of joke. I mean, it's not actually a joke, but I do joke, like, because we make everyone around us miserable. And I don't know how my boyfriend stayed with me for so long when I was behaving like that, because honestly, I wouldn't have stayed with me. I wouldn't have put up with that, right? But that's the thing about when you get in that state. Yeah, it's just really toxic and negative. And I have written there, the misery loves company. And that, again, that self-feeding loop, because we actually attract and pull in more things to keep us in that negative state. So this is what it looks like to have no control over your emotions. You are just a giant toddler. I like to say, spewing the emotions all over the place. Even if that's the silent treatment, which is linked in with the anger, or maybe you're the, crier, where I'm going to say manipulate. It's a manipulation. It is. Maybe it's not consciously done, but it's like making excuses. We're trying to manipulate our way out of something, right? All right, so let's talk about, I already mentioned this. What is stress? And anxiety is in that same bucket. Stress is a physical and mental response to the feeling of pressure. Something happens, we get new information. Oh, pressure's on. And all of a sudden whether we start sweating, our heart goes up, and then we start kind of like freaking out, right? It's emotions, right? It's a demand on us. It's a feeling of pressure, that makes it an emotion. And anxiety is the same. It's simply an emotion. And of course, as I have written, awareness is the first step to change. It really, truly is. So, control our emotions, we can control our stress and anxiety. And if we can control our stress and anxiety, we pretty much control our lives. We control all of our reactions. I'll say, instead of reacting, we're going to start responding, because we can control that. Then we start being able to behave like an adult. Then we start actually being the person we actually want to be, an actual true adult, right? And the biggest thing to remember is either we control our emotions or our emotions control us. There's not really an in between. And yes, it definitely fluctuates back and forth because when life is easy, life is good, we're not feeling any pressure, it's very easy for us to just be happy, go about our day, be perfectly in control, and everything's fine. But then something comes in, situation, whether, maybe an accident happened, the boss comes in with a huge deadline, you had 3 employees call in sick and, like, nobody to cover, like, "Whoa." That's where either you stay in control or those emotions come in. You start panicking, you start freaking out, you start, like, feeling that heart racing, whatever it might be. But 2 people cannot be driving the car, right? So, either we are in control or those emotions are in control, but it cannot be both, unfortunately. So really think about, we're doing a lot of awareness today. Day one, awareness. What are the top 3 things that cause you stress? And this is, pardon me, this is a really, really good exercise because when we can list out and label what are the things that actually stress us, the top main things, if we can address even one of those top things causing you stress, then right there, when we start working on changing that, you're going to eliminate a lot of stress immediately, right? So really just think about, is there something every day that bothers you? Maybe every morning you get road rage. Every morning your kids wake up late and they stress you out trying to get them out the door. Like, top things in your life. And it's okay, like, pause this recording and just sit and think about it. And maybe you have to think about it and it'll come to you in a couple of hours. Maybe you circle back to this, whatever works. But just know that when we start really digging into, like, what are the issues I need to get a hold of, that's when we can make those real changes. And remember, it's not about judgment, it's not about guilt, shame, blah, 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 blah. None of that. We are literally gathering information in order to make the changes. That's it. That's as simple as that is. Remember that. And then those main triggers. What is something like you're just like, oh, that gets me every time? Write those down. And this can be definitely be different than what causes you stress. Like, oh yeah, the kids waking up late and just never getting out the door, that causes me a lot of stress. What triggers you? When someone asks me a really stupid question, XYZ, instantly I get angry. That triggers me, right? Like, these can be very different things. And I think of a trigger more as that, like, instant, right? That's why it's called a trigger, because it's pulled right away. Instant reaction brings up the emotions right away. Again, when we can identify the main triggers, then we can start working on them. Then we can get a process, deal with them, whatever healing needs to be done, and we can get rid of those triggers. Huge difference in our lives, huge. And I just want to also mention with that, because a lot of triggers, all triggers are from some sort of situation, some sort of problem, something has happened, an issue or a trauma that has not been resolved. And when we can resolve the situation, the trauma, whatever from the past that has caused that trigger, when we can process that, heal that, resolve that, the trigger is gone, right? So when we can identify the triggers, then we can dive deep into, okay, why is this actually a trigger for me? What's lying underneath? Then you can heal that. Then you get rid of the trigger. Huge, huge. And then what are your normal reactions or responses? For any of the stress, any of your triggers, the kids not making it out of the door in time. Are you able to take that breath, not yell at them, and actually respond like, come on, let's go, guys, this? Like, are you able to stay in control? Maybe the triggers are the ones where it really spins you into a reaction and you get very emotional. Just kind of list out, for all the things you've written down, what is your usual response or reaction, right? It's very, very telling. So next, we also want to feel when we get triggered, Where do we feel it? And this is a little trick to also help build that mind-body connection. The mind-body connection is so imperative for really being able to process emotions, being able to um, basically have a healthy life, really. I know as a massage therapist, I have had people come in with back pain. And I remember this one person, they're like, oh, yeah, my low back, it's so sore. I have so much pain there. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, do you mind if I just kind of feel around and I'm poking and trying to figure out where exactly the pain is coming from so I can kind of think about what kind of massage we're doing, what we're going to focus on, etc. See if there's any other issues relating to it. And then I get up to their shoulder blades and they're like, yeah, that's the spot. And I'm like, that's not your low back at all. Like, wow. But their awareness, like to process the sensation they're feeling and to have that connection to their body to know where it's coming from was so disconnected, they couldn't even tell where the pain was. I don't know if you've ever heard someone, oh, my back hurts. Well, where? Oh, just my back. Well, our backs are huge, like pretty broad, right? But this is really, really important. And then, of course, you have other people, they'll be like, oh, my leg hurts. Well, where? And they'll point right there. Exactly. Not a millimeter right, not a millimeter, right there. That's where it hurts, right? They have a really good connection. They're interpreting all the signals. Everything is going. And this is important when we start gaining control over those emotions because our emotions also happen in the body. Like when you get anxiety, for me personally, it's like a fluttering in the chest a little bit, almost like I have butterflies right in the middle of my rib cage. A lot of people will feel ill, they'll feel sick to the stomach. So when you can start to discern all these different feelings we get, what it's related to, then that brings the awareness about even more where sometimes the body reacts before the mind, right? So if we start feeling a sensation in the body, we can right away be like, oh, something's happening. And then it gives us that couple seconds extra to start processing, to maybe have that pause, to prepare ourselves like, something's happening that I'm just not quite aware of just yet. So this is one of many reasons why that mind-body connection is so important. And then just really, if you can, go back to those top 3 stressors, the things that trigger you, and even thinking about the reactions you normally have. Do you normally feel a sensation? Like a lot of people, they get really stressed, and they'll start rubbing their neck right away. It shows up in the neck and shoulders. Other people have hip issues, right? Like just let's start connecting those dots into how everything is really integrated into one another. Everything is connected, right? The more awareness we have, the more change we can make. So this really, it might not seem important, but it really is important. So we're going to think of the last thing that triggered you. And stress can be very different than the triggering. That triggering is usually much more intense than stress. So if we can get a hold of that, and the triggering is quite often where that, toddler adult tantrums come from because it's pretty instantaneous. The emotions just flood in. All of a sudden we're spewing our emotions everywhere, stomping around, lashing out, like whatever it might be, right? So rate the intensity, 1 to 10, where you feel when you get triggered. I'm going to say for most people, it's probably like a 8, somewhere in there. For me, it was definitely like about an 8. I used to be quite intense. And then how irritated? Was it just like irritation? Was it actual like seething anger? Where's that scale? Because it really is, there's quite a few different varieties of anger we can feel, right? And then was there a sensation in the body? Did you feel it? Maybe the shoulders came up right away. Maybe, your muscles just clenched. Like, what was going on? Now think of that moment, that actual irritation, person said something to you, something happened, whatever it might be, and you really want to do the square breathing. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. Drop the shoulders as we're breathing out and really grind. Have your feet grounded on the floor and just feel the connection with the floor. So what we're doing is we're thinking of that trigger, those emotions coming up, and really having them well and keeping that moment, breathing into it, breathing out. Now, guys, what really, really works for me and tends to work for almost everyone I tell this to, so I highly recommend it. I mean, do what you want, but I highly recommend it, is when I do this square breathing, especially when there's a lot of emotion behind it, I always visualize white, soothing, cleansing light coming in, right down to my tippy toes. And when I breathe out through my mouth, I visualize all that anger, that negativity, all that toxic, and I visualize it like a black goo going out. It blows into the trees, it blows off, the trees are going to cleanse it out, we're all good. And especially if you have like road rage, if you're using this literally in the moment, I would visualize that till my whole body was like white and cleansed, and like whatever I'm blowing back out was like a tinge of gray. And I always felt better. Like I was almost completely reset. So this really, really works. And in order to be able to do that in the moment, we need to practice it beforehand, because then we start creating that habit of this is what we do when we get triggered. We take our breath and we cleanse it out and we bring everything down. We're resetting the nervous system, bringing it down, right? And then you take 1 or 2 of those breaths. You're still thinking about that trigger and those emotions, and then you re-rate the intensity of those emotions. Replay that event that's happening. Like, how do you feel now? Right? Huge difference, right? Now, just imagine you continue this habit and over a couple of months, and eventually, however long it takes you, but this is just your go to. Something comes in, you can just take a breath, you get triggered, and you're like, nope, not biting it, not taking the bait, not being triggered this time, right? Game changer. So huge. And if you need to pause again and just sit with this, do this a couple times, really work through this, please feel free to do that. And then here's where we take it a little bit deeper, is the rewrite. I use this with implementing boundaries also. This is a really powerful tool. It works really, really well. We've kind of forgotten about literally just writing things. So this is like really, really powerful. There's something about the pen to paper and the mind connection with that. It's next level. And so when you think of the last situation, maybe that same last thing, what triggered you, you've brought everything down, right? Now you think of exactly how everything happened, but what would regulated you do? If you were completely calm, you're in control, you don't get triggered anymore, what would the you want to be, regulated you, what would they do? Right? And you write it down. Like literally, like you're writing out a script for actors, like a playwright. You literally write down the scene, the scenario, what you say, what they say back, how you diffuse everything, like literally everything. You rewrite that situation. And this is really powerful because then you can go back and you can, again, close your eyes and visualize that same trigger, that same situation. And now you're thinking and you're implementing, in the screen of your mind, you're playing out that new scene. And we're putting it into our subconscious. Like, no, we don't react like that anymore. This is how we respond. and we're creating new neural pathways. And this is how we change our habits, right? And then really think about which version of the life and relationships you want. How does that person respond? Does she lash out, storm out of the room, and not talk to her husband for 3 days? Or does she take a breath and be like, listen, honey, okay, we know this is making me very upset. Here's why, X, Y, Z. And then you have a great conversation, you resolve the problem, and you sit down and eat dinner, and everybody's happy, right? Okay, so the homework for today is track how many times you get triggered, you feel stressed, or you're feeling anxious, like you have anxiety. This might be, depending where you're at. If you found me, I assume most of my clients have already started doing some work in this field. If you haven't, that's okay too. So I think back in the height of my stress and anxiety days, I was anxious for the majority of the day. Like, I would probably just write down, if I was doing my homework like this back then, I would be like, how many times a day do you feel anxious? I'd probably just put like always, or not at bedtime, right? That would just be easier. And same with like triggers. Someone says something, like, it's super common, so I'm just going to say it. Someone says Trump. Ah, trigger, trigger, trigger. Like, right? Note down and just think about every time you get that chalk, nails on the chalkboard, you get that, what'd you just say? Like, note it all down. So maybe the anxiety, maybe the stress is, you're like, I always feel stressed every day, always, that's my normal. Maybe you just kind of write that, and then you focus on how many times a day do you get triggered, but try to dive a bit deeper into it, because it is easy to slough it off and just be like, oh, I always have anxiety, whatever. But let's dig a little deeper. Maybe it's like, hey, I'm actually not anxious when I'm having breakfast and my coffee, or I'm usually not anxious when I'm getting ready for bed. Like, let's think about, you have the majority of your day in stress and anxiety. Okay, when don't you have it? Okay, what do you think? Why? Why do you think that is? Start building that awareness. Start, gathering that information of what's actually going on in your life, right? And then that trigger, how long did it take you to recover? Were you mad for hours, mad for days, whatever it is? Did you go home 3 hours later and vent to your friend, oh my God, you won't believe, and you're still carrying that with you? How long did that last, right? And then, of course, what exactly was it that triggered you? Because, fun fact, guys, what triggers us is never actually what just happened, like what that person said or what that person did. That's never the actual reason for us being triggered. It's something in the past, something that is unresolved, like I said before, something unhealed, unresolved, undealt with. It's never about what just happened. It's about something from before. So the more we can dive into that, the more we can figure that out, the more we can get rid of that. So, all right, guys, this is a lot. I know it's kind of a lot to take in. Um, and this is pretty big homework, but remember, we're leaving emotions at the door. This is awareness building, which means we're basically being detectives. It's not like we want to put emotion in it, and we're literally gathering facts. Emotion at the door, we're gathering facts, we're writing down information. That's all this is. So even if you want to detach yourself a little bit and almost like you're reporting on someone else's life, you're literally just writing notes. That's it. That's all we're doing so far. So, and it's a huge, huge, huge key step. So, all right, guys, leave some comments. Let me know what you think. Are you completely overwhelmed? You're like, whatever, I got this, no big deal. Let me know. And yeah, we will see you guys tomorrow.